Okay, guys, I'm back. Um, I made a video about Kanye West a few weeks ago. It's kind of challenging people's opinions on his Sunday service ceremony or musical worship services that he holds every week. And back then, when I made the video, it was kind of like very fresh. It was very new. He'd only had like one or two services that he started during Coachella Valley weekend, which we know Coachella is like a Woodstock type concert where secular artists, it's like a bunch of secular artists, perform. And it is held every year in Coachella Valley, California, in California. So Kanye started the Sunday services, worship services or musical services during Coachella weekend. And ever since then, he has kind of been having these services where he invites his big old choir, and he invites, like celebrity friends and, people to come and just kind of sing and praise and worship together. And they do mention Jesus Christ, and they do quote the Bible, the Holy Bible, during the service, but they also sing a lot of secular songs, a lot of rap songs and things like that. So they're mixing the sacred with the profane. They're mixing the secular and the sacred, and that doesn't sit well with me really at all. But then also thinking of a lot of the things that has happened with Kanye recently. Like in 2017, he was checked in the hospital and he used Jim Jones's name, the religious leader Jim Jones's name, as an alias. Then he turned around and he published his own Bible, and then he calls himself Jesus, like Jesus. He had an album cover where he was wearing the crown of thorns and he was hanging on the cross like he was Jesus. He started the Sunday services, during Coachella Valley weekend. And now Kanye has purchased this big old huge ranch. They said the size of like a small city, or this huge property with this ranch, and in a remote town called Cody, Wyoming, which I've never heard of. Cody, Wyoming. Who has really heard of Cody, Wyoming? They said it's a really remote area off in Wyoming. And I'm thinking, Wyoming, black people don't even hardly live in Wyoming. Up in those upper states like the Dakotas and Wyoming and Vermont and New Hampshire, they have very small African American populations. But I think what Kanye is doing is that he's going to develop that land. He's going to build a bunch of houses, like maybe small houses, like those little veteran houses that they made, in those little small, veteran communities where they they house a lot of homeless veterans. I think what Kanye is going to do, he's going to build a lot of housing, and he's going to develop that land to the point that it's going to be a compound, and he's going to convince a lot of homeless people. He's going to convince a lot of broken, downtrodden people, people that are just grown up with government and society, and people like that from the fringes of society. He's going to convince a lot of people, including his fans, to relocate to that compound in Cody, Wyoming. That's what I think is going to happen. Same as like Jim Jones did. Remember, if you go back and watch some of the documentaries and the movies about Jim Jones, and there's so many out there, research Jim Jones's life and research how Jim Jones started off as a Pentecostal or Methodist preacher in Indiana. He wanted to grow his congregation, and he said that he was being oppressed in Indiana, and he didn't like the racism and the segregation in Indiana. So he convinced a lot of African American and poor white people, and basically downtrodden people, to relocate with him and form this cult and live on this compound, at first in California. And his congregation grew. Jim Jones's congregation grew. The People's Temple grew to from like 80 members to like 900 members. And we all know, if you know anything about Jim Jones and what happened, is that as his congregation grew, and as he would convince people to sell their houses and empty their bank accounts and turn over all their assets to him, and relocate, and he would provide for their food, their health care, their shelter, their everything. And they lived on that compound, and he was kind of like the ruler of the compound, or the leader of the compound. He had a lot of employees and things like that, and they grew their own food. They had gardens and all of that stuff in that compound. And so what happened is that as he became more famous and more well noted in the public among politicians, and you know, he became a pretty much a religious celebrity. And so his behavior became more erratic and more tyrannical, to where they said he would have sex with his male and female cult members. He would discipline them by having them beaten sometimes. You know, if they did something out of pocket that he didn't like, he would have them call them up to in front of the congregation and have them beaten. One cult member had gave an interview and said that he seen a man beaten, knocked unconscious. They doused him with water, brought him back conscious, and beat him again. And so these were men and women that, you know, suffered these severe beatings, you know, that were ordered by Jim Jones. He was a sexual deviant. He was a drug addict. They said that he began to use a lot of drugs and used to drink. And he just basically ran these people's lives like a tyrant or a dictator, a religious dictator. And so he had gotten to the point, they said he threw the Bible and told the people to just discredit the Bible because it was too oppressive to, you know, to black people. And he told them to to discount the Bible, and he threw it on the ground during one of the People's Temple services, and he began to call himself God and Christ and things like that. And some of the members defected, and they left, you know, the People's Temple, and they began to go to the media and tell, you know, politicians and reporters and stuff that this man is running some type of crazy cult. He's abusive, he's sexually deviant, he uses drugs, and they begin to expose a lot of the inner workings of the cult and Jim Jones. So what happens is that he picks up, and they all, as the reporters and the politicians were investigating him, he panicked, and he moved the entire cult and flew them down to South America, Guyana, and that's where, you know, they relocated, and that's where Jonestown, that's where they moved to. And so what ended up happening, you know, we know in November of '78, he convinced, or he had all these brainwashed cult members to drink poison-laced punch, and pretty much committed one of the most massive murder-suicides in the history of this country. Nearly, it was like over 900 people, 912 people, including himself. 913 people, total lives lost, men, women, and children, multicultural, black and white. And Jim Jones himself, he ended up shooting himself for either having one of his employees shoot him. He didn't drink the punch like the other people did. He took the coward's way out and had himself shot in the head so he could die like that. But it was so demonic, so terrible, such a terrible tragedy. And I'm just beginning to see. I'm beginning to see a lot of similarities between Kanye and Jim Jones. Kanye writing his own Bible, calling himself Jesus. He bought that compound, and I just think that's what's going to happen. He's going to convince a lot of people to relocate to that compound, and that's where he's going to hold his Sunday services. If you go back and you look on YouTube and stuff, you will see, compare the People's Temple services with Kanye West's Sunday services. They're eerily similar in nature. They're very similar. They used to mix secular songs with sacred songs the same way Kanye is doing. And so let me turn this around and see if I can show you a little small clip. This is the Jonestown People's Temple. That's Jim Jones. That's the Jonestown People's Temple. That's a People's Temple service. You see that? She's singing a secular song. Okay? So that's Jim Jones. This is Kanye West's Sunday service. All right. That's Jim Jones. Let me cut her off. Let me cut her off. Now this is Kanye West. Okay, this is Kanye West. This is Kanye West's Sunday service. Let me show y'all something, the similarities. Let me get a good clip. That's him, Kanye, making beats. And this is Sunday service. That's secular music. But he got a Sunday service. He's playing Chicago house music. And that's a Sunday service choir t-shirt he's wearing. Let me take that out. Let me show you one with the lady singing. Let me show you one with the lady singing, just like it was with Jim Jones. Where's that one? Where's that clip at? This is a secular artist, and she's singing during the Kanye Sunday service. Let me show you. Okay, this is taking a while to load.
Grammarly does more than catch errors.
I want to watch this crap.
With Grammarly, you can find...
All right, y'all. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. They're singing about God. You see that? Look at that. All right. Y'all see that? Very similar in nature. Very similar.